Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? Truck driver, author, illustrator in Oklahoma City. Mainly a truck driver because I don't sell enough authoring or illustrating to retire. Anyway, heck of a day today. Got up to 106. Reefer could not compete. Had to return some product because it was not in temps. By reefer, I mean refrigerator. We don't smoke the Mexican tobacco around here. And I would not transport it because it smells like a skunk's butthole. And anyway, uh, so the internet has decided to put everything they're doing on pause and review this crappy new War of the Worlds movie that came out from Amazon Prime, starring O'Shea Jackson. Is he Junior or is he the third? O'Shea Jackson is Ice Cube. He's got a son that he named Junior. It's been 20 years since we got the Tom Cruise adaptation set in North America, and that was actually a really well done movie. It did the horror and terror and thriller elements to perfection. It's not one that I've gone back to watch a whole lot, but it nailed that aspect of it really, really well. I first tried to read War of the Worlds in sixth grade. I don't think I finished it. And after this adaptation came out, and three different movie channels that I follow all, like I said, dropped what they were doing to review this one. Like Pointless Hub did a great video, and he's supposed to be releasing a Clash of the Titans video, but he did this one instead. Space Ice did it, and he releases weekly. His stuff is a little bit different. And Pitch Meeting, I think he did one within like a day, and it was hilarious. I have no desire to actually watch this movie, but I thought, well, why don't I reread the book and give a review of it there? So I went and checked out the book from Hoopla, and I decided to listen to it today. I got about a quarter of the way through it, and I put it down, and I thought, I want to be honest here. I don't enjoy reading this book. And nothing has changed in the last, 30 years that it's been since sixth grade. I didn't really enjoy reading it back then either. It was just one of those that has this aura of being a classic sci-fi. But when you actually sit down to read it, do you, as a 21st century reader, enjoy War of the Worlds? Is it one that you go back to regularly? I would postulate that the answer is no. It's one of those books that was really great in its time, and a lot of great sci-fi is built on what it accomplished. But this book came out 127 years ago. It was novel then. It doesn't really, it's not much of a page turner for me. Maybe you're a vociferous defender of H.G. Wells' prose and everything, and his prose is fine. It's just one of those books that I feel like it probably did better with the audience of its day. And now, with so much stuff that has come in its wake and built on what it initiated, you could look at it now and be like, oh, this is kind of plain. It's just kind of there. Like I said, it takes place in England originally, because that's where Wells was from. And you get a glimpse of what was known about the planet Mars back then, that it's a quarter of our size, that it's colder than our place. But he also plays with some other ideas, like what makes us think that it's at the end of its cycle? Maybe it's at the beginning. Maybe life has been there before. What if there's an advanced civilization there and they look at Earth the way that the European powers looked at the New World, 400 years before he was writing this book? So he was, at least in the mainstream sense, he was the author that kind of kicked off the genesis of that recurring idea in sci-fi. Star Trek has the Prime Directive, where they talk about, like, we'll discover new civilizations, but we won't mess with them, we won't colonize them, we'll just document them, and if they're not spacefaring, we're not going to give them technology beyond their original advancement level, we'll trade with them if they are spacefaring. I'd have to think that Roddenberry drew pretty heavily on Wells's ideas. That's all cool and well and good. But again, sitting down to read this book is something that I doubt many readers do. And this shot that I took at it today, I was like, this is fine. I just don't care. People think a lot about the radio broadcast that Orson Welles did in the 1930s and how it terrified people because they thought it was a real broadcast of something that was really happening. And like that's a cool thing to think about. Kind of like it's cool to think about what H.G. Wells must have done to the reading public at large in 1898 when this book came out. There were all these really, really new concepts. And I think it's hard to be a writer and go beyond just writing something entertaining and instead whip out a really novel, mind-blowing idea. As much as I've been talking about Crichton lately and how much I generally talk about him on this channel, he's one of those authors that did that often with his work. Jurassic Park is one of those 1 in a billion ideas. And it was a version of an idea that he had tackled before, but he found a new way to combine something in the sciences with an idea that he had developed to an extent previously, that being genetics plus his Westworld idea. It's hard to be that original, that innovative, and that mind-bending, and I think that's what people remember. But I think you also need to remember that it's been 127 years, and the stuff that is even classical for me at this point in 2025 is decades and decades removed from the work that he did back then. We're many derivations away from that. It still has value as a link in the chain of great science fiction. I just don't find it entertaining to read it. And honestly, I've had the same problem with some of Edgar Rice Burroughs' writing. There are parts of John Carter of Mars that I can't get into. But I still love the heroism and the adventure and the imagination in that series, as well as the prose. But it's not one like a Gary Paulson that I sit down and crack open and read it over and over again in my lifetime. But maybe that's just a matter of personal taste. But what this has to do with my take on... Okay, so this isn't like my take on or my assessment of the Ice Cube movie that just dropped, but the idea that they would adapt this film 20 years ago with Tom Cruise and then adapt it again this year, why would they keep doing it? Well, for the same reason that Hollywood is doing any kind of movie that has a recognizable brand name behind it. They figure if there's recognition, then that equals at least a baseline percent of butts in seats and return on investment. This is where I really want to hype up Pointless Hub's channel. He's one of those movie reviewer guys who does just fantastic deep dives into the behind the scenes of a movie, how it was made, and what it means, culturally or whatever. He does a great job of finding something unique to say, I think. Finding a unique take, not just riffing on a general consensus. There will be months in between some of his videos coming out, and that's fine because what he creates is not only entertaining and rewatchable, but informative and unique. And in this case, he did some digging to find out why this movie was made. And, well, I won't spoil it for you. His video is less than half an hour long. It's entertaining. Like I said, I like his writing voice. I like the way that he performs his scripts. And I really appreciate the observations that he makes because he's got his own takes. And that's a rare enough thing. Funnily enough, and this will be my final take on this here, as bad as this movie sounds from the reviews that I've seen of it, Pointless Hub, Space Ice, and Pitch Meeting, it probably wouldn't be so poorly received if it wasn't wrapped in the brand of War of the Worlds. Because you say War of the Worlds, and that immediately puts that legacy expectation on it. Hey, this is going to be as fundamentally changing or perhaps novel as what H.G. Wells did back in the day. It's like, no, it's just a new skin on an old thing that is more than a century old at this point. And if you're going to do a version of War of the Worlds that is not at least as good as what's already come before it, I'd rather just go plug in the Tom Cruise version and watch that. Maybe they could have called it something else, and the guy could have just had War of the Worlds sitting on his desk while he's doing DHS stuff and trying to fight off aliens that are eating data, and he'll be like, hey, the aliens in War of the Worlds died because of a virus, and I also like Independence Day. They did the same thing. Let's feed it a virus. Something like that. It could be a cheesy, schlocky movie, but people would watch it, I think, with the same approach that they take to movies like Sharknado or other B-movie sci-fi channel productions. They would watch it and make fun of it with their friends. This one, though, because it has aspirations of being The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, it shoots too high and thus falls too far. Calling it something else would have made it, I don't know, maybe suck a little bit less. But then maybe it would have just been another movie. And I'm sure there are plenty of people who watched it over the weekend to see just how bad it was. And that got Amazon Prime the watch minutes that they wanted, and thus here we are. Anyway, on Fiend, read The War of the Worlds if you haven't, and let me know if I'm completely off base on my take on reading the book. Drive safe. See you out there.